our science lesson today, we will be starting the unit on light. Specifically, we will be learning about refraction. Students will use this image of an eye in a fish in water to make observations and understand what they're observing. What they're observing is refraction, but I wouldn't start off telling them that. Then I would introduce to them that we are going to be learning about refraction and asking them to define what they think refraction is in their own words prior to the lesson. For the content of our lesson, the students would be doing an interactive and engaging activity where they would be using a model to understand what refraction is and be able to define it. So using two beakers, one empty and one filled halfway with water, each would have a pencil, so two pencils, and the students would be using a T-chart to make observations and ask questions to further understand what they are observing. Based on what they're observing, they will be able to write down the information that they're finding in their groups with about 5 people per group that they would work with to collaborate with one another and understand what refraction is. And then as the students are writing down their observations and questions, the teacher would be going around the classroom to ask the students what they think it is, how their new definition might change based on the activity. I would be able to also ask them questions to prompt their thinking more critically if they're having a hard time understanding what they're seeing. I would also explain that students are able to draw what they're visualizing opposed to just having to write down what they're seeing or asking. Because I know that some students learn differently, and specifically the students in my classroom do like to draw and do learn more visually and use visual representation for their learning. As a closure for this lesson, I would encourage the students prior to coming to the carpet to discuss in their groups what they observed, talk about the definition they think refraction is, maybe compare and contrast similarities and differences they found, or similarities and differences in their definition. And then after that, I would ask all the students to come to the carpet with a pencil and their T-chart, and I would ask them what their definition of refraction is after making their observations and questions. But prior to that, I would have students from each group share their observations and their questions and how their questions were answered through their observations. And then based on those answers, students would be able to come up with a definition as a class and then make other outside connections. So they could use the image from the very beginning or through the activity to maybe further understand how refraction works in the real world. So example, if a seagull was seeing a bird, if a seagull saw a fish in the water, they would understand then that maybe the seagull isn't seeing it where it actually is, but where it appears to be, which is what refraction is through the bending of light. And students need to understand in the conclusion and in the closure that in our specific activity using the beakers in the water, that it is the water that is causing the pencil to appear bent, and that the water is the medium that's changing the way it appears to the eye. And then based on that, students would be able to make their own definitions, and then there would be a handout that would also have a definition for the students to then add to their notes or in their science notebooks to have to further reference, and they would also be able to insert their T-charts for future lessons for this unit. As a part of the closure, I will also incorporate the Kahoots quiz to make sure that the students have a full understanding of the definition and certain terms that go along with the lesson on refraction for the overall unit of light.